What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. Welcome to Monday's edition of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. I am your host, James Murphy, and if you haven't seen from the title already, today is part 2 of my collaboration with GUINEY'S Sports Pod. Shawn, yes, part 2 is dropping today. In part 1, if you haven't listened already, I strongly consider you to do so, where we talk about the Celtics and the Bruins extremely in-depthly. And in this episode, we talk about the Red Sox, what we expect from them, who we could expect to play well, what we, can see, expect, and hope from the Red Sox. And then after that, we talk about the Patriots. Wow, do we go into the Patriots, talking about free agency, talking about the draft, talking about certain players that the Patriots should go after or shouldn't go after. And obviously, free agency is still going right now. It's been a week ever since, the big news of the Patriots signing just about everybody under the sun. But Shawn and I both go into that very, very much and into detail of why this player, why that player, and so on and so forth. And then we also take a look at the draft, what the Patriots should do at 15. Should they trade up? Should they trade back? What should they do in the later rounds? What do they need, especially after signing everybody that they did? Where do the Patriots go from here in terms of the draft? For a long time, I've said quarterback. For a long time, I've said wide receiver. Well, it seems like they kind of addressed that, bringing back Cam Newton, signing Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne. Obviously, there was a tight end possibility with Kyle Pitts. Well, we'd signed 2 tight ends. Okay, now we look to the defense, bring in a linebacker. Well, you kind of did. You brought Matt Judon in, you brought Kyle Van Noy back, and you have Dante Hightower coming back from COVID opt-out. So a lot of question marks there with the Patriots now at 15. What should they do? And Shawn and I dive into it immensely, like I said. So before we go any further, please comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. Definitely leave this video a like rating. And if you're watching on audio-only platforms, reach out to me at Murphs_Boston ST, where the ST stands for Sports Talk, as you know, as you love. And on Wednesday, on Hump Day's edition, we will get back into our regular scheduled recorded episodes. But this collaboration was extremely fun, so definitely please enjoy it. Check out my buddy Shawn's podcast as well. The links will be in the description as well as mine. Please download, please listen, and please enjoy as always. But here is part 2 of Shawn and I's collaboration.
Speaking of another team, let's switch gears quickly. I want to talk a little bit about the Red Sox because I want to get to the Patriots and free agency.
All right.
So the Red Sox, they're in spring training right now. Spring training doesn't really matter. I don't really care about it, but they're still in spring training.
Yes.
Season starts up soon. What are your expectations for them this season?
It's so hard. I had low expectations for them at the start of spring training, and I know that the games don't mean anything, but they do look really good though. They really do. I mean, they're winning a few games. I mean, obviously they're losing a game. I mean, it really doesn't matter. But overall, I'm content with this team. I have a little bit of hope now. Are they going to go out and, win the World Series? No. Could they make the playoffs and make a little bit of noise as a wild card team? Absolutely. And I feel like that's the floor, and I feel like that's the ceiling for the team. I don't see them dethroning the Yankees. I mean, they're just way too good as of now. I feel like if the Red Sox don't make the playoffs, it's a disappointment because they're the Red Sox. They have a ton of star talent. They have the championship pedigree. You got your coach back. You have a ton of players that you're hoping for bounce back seasons from. There's no excuse not to make the playoffs this year with a full 162 games schedule. You can say pitching, but at the end of the day, that's your own fault for not going out and getting said pitching, because I'm not a big fan of this rotation, but I think everything else is pretty solid, especially that lineup.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the season, but I'm not really in the same boat as you. I think that if they at least go, I have them going for around 80 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a little more, could be a little less. But if they don't make the playoffs, I'm completely fine with it.
Why is that?
The Yankees are really good, obviously. The Blue Jays loaded up this offseason.
Oh, yeah, they're good.
They're going to make some noise this season, and they could maybe fight with the Yankees for the top spot. So that leaves us. The Rays are a mess.
Hey.
The Rays are a mess.
Terrible.
So they're not going to be the same team as they were last season. So the Red Sox could be the 3 seed, at worst the 4 seed. Maybe even 2nd seed if the Blue Jays can't get anything together. But they're going to be mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't make, I don't expect them to make the playoffs. I'll be fine if they don't, because they're still growing. They still got some young guys that need the experience, especially guys who haven't played yet. I mean, last season, Bobby Dahlbeck played a couple games.
I love
and
Dahlbeck.
So far this season, I mean, he's got this spring training. He's got 5 home runs, 12 RBIs, 10 runs on 9 hits. He hasn't really played at all. So there's a bunch of young guys that they still have. They're going to get the experience that they need. And who knows, two seasons from now, next season, they could possibly be a wildcard contender. And they'll just keep building up from there. But this season, I'm not expecting much. If they make the playoffs, great. But I don't expect them to. They'll be mediocre. They'll be around 500, 80 wins. Book it at 80 wins.
I like the point that you brought up, saying how they have a bunch of young players, and they do, and it feels good for it's been a long time since we've actually said that they have a bunch of young players. I mean, Dahlbeck, you mentioned, of Connor Wong from the Betts deal, even Verdugo's still a young guy from the Betts deal. Jaron Duran, Jeter Downs. You can even consider Michael Chavis still a young guy if you want. But on the other,
seasons from JD.
What's up?
Bounce back season from JD Martinez.
And I was going to say, I mean, the Red Sox do have a lot of, older veteran players on their team. JD Martinez, Bogarts. I mean, I feel like Devers can kind of be in that boat now as part of the veterans. Vasquez even. Plus the pitching staff, Eduardo Rodriguez, Eovaldi, Chris Sale's going to be coming back, hopefully sooner than later. So you have a lot of veteran pieces, and I feel like the mindset for the Red Sox this year is to bounce back, and I don't want to say go for it, but that's their attitude that they're going to have because of how they played last year in the 60-game season. It was a shit show for them. Now, obviously, when it comes to pure talent, they are inferior to the Yankees. I love what the Blue Jays did. They brought in a bunch of young talent, and they brought in a bunch of veterans too. They have a really good team out there. I feel like your mindset for the Red Sox and the Blue Jays could be reversed, because the Blue Jays have a better younger core, and they brought in the veteran players that they need. But are they in win now mode? They geared up like it is, but I think in terms of personnel, I think the Red Sox are a little bit closer to that point. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that they will, but I don't know. I mean, yes, the Red Sox have a bunch of young players, but they also have a bunch of, veterans as well. Marwin Gonzalez, they brought in Hunter Renfroe. I mean, he's not really, anything good or special, but they got some pieces to make a push and make a run. And especially after last season, I can't see them accepting, wanting, or, being anything less than a 500 team. I know before we recorded, I said I think the line was like 83.5. I really think that they have to go over. Otherwise, Sox fans are going to be out for their heads, like, Celtics fans are out for the Celtics head.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about betting, I'd honestly just avoid betting on win totals, because they could be around 80 wins. It could be a little more than that, or it could be a little less than that. And so it's really not a safe bet to bet
on.
Absolutely
not. It's not.
But what you're talking about was the Blue Jays, how they don't have the personnel like the Red Sox do. What do you really mean like that?
So they still have a really good, they have a great young core. They have Biggio, they have Vlad Jr., Bo Bichette, obviously, and they brought in, Michael Brantley and George Springer. Is that going to be enough for them, though? I mean, they brought in Ryu last year to be basically their ace. I just feel like, I mean, the Blue Jays, yes, made the playoffs last year, and, they had a nice little run, flirted with the division a little bit. I just don't know. And of course, if a full regular 162 that's going to hold up. I mean, you look at the Orioles last year, they were flirting with a wild card spot too. And over 162, that doesn't hold up for a team like them. For the Blue Jays, though, where you're going to be playing, across the whole league and not just in your division or your opposite
Region.
league's division.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that holds up for them. I don't know if they have enough yet. They don't have that championship pedigree. They haven't been there and gotten close enough, obviously, with the exception of the Astros players that came over. But with the Red Sox, a lot of those players from the 2018 team are still here. And a lot of those players were also on the team last year. And I don't think they're going to accept anything like that again this year. So that's why I think there's just a little bit of a different mentality and mindset for both teams, because I think the Blue Jays will just be happy with 85 wins. I think they'll be content with that and use that as a building block for next year and let all their younger players still progress. But meanwhile, the Red Sox younger players are expected to make a lot of noise with their veteran players.
All right, yeah, and I mean so that does make a little more sense to me now. But to me, I mean, last season was really just like a whole reset season, and it was probably planned. Like obviously, like when the pandemic first hit and the season got pushed back, like I have a feeling that they just wanted like a quick reset, and it was a perfect opportunity. It was 60 games.
Oh yeah,
around there, so that it made sense to me, and I was completely fine with it. I just completely ignored the Red Sox. Barely watched any games. I think I watched like 5 games last season. This season, it'll be obviously more. But again, they're still like they're in a little rebuild. It started last season. It really started the season before that. That was an unexpected rebuild where they had a little downhill season. Things really fell apart. Then last year they reset. They got a high draft pick. Hopefully they use it smartly. And now this season they're gonna start their climb back up. So in saying that, I'm still gonna say that they're gonna miss the playoffs. They'll be mediocre. They'll be mediocre, and that's really the best I can say.
mm-hmm.
They'll compete at points, but then at other points you'll see the obvious young amateur mistakes. And that's something that I'm expecting, and that's something I'm gonna deal with.
There's definitely a lot of opportunity for the Red Sox to both exceed and struggle over the course of the season. You're playing a full 162, which you haven't done in 2 years now. Last year, I think, was a great opportunity for them to, kind of rebuild, retool, reset the whole thing, because no one really cares about the 2020 season, obviously, except the team who won the World Series. But I mean, you look at the Marlins who made it to the playoffs. No one really cares about that. The Blue Jays made the playoffs. No one really cares about that. So the Red Sox sucking and tanking that year, no one really cares about it, because there's so many arguments to make, like, oh, over the course of a full season, they could have bounced back, which is probably true, but we'll never know. And entering this year, I feel like a lot of expectations, a lot of the vibe that I'm getting, especially having Cora back, players coming back from injury, is that they want to do good and that they will do good. At least that's what they're expecting at down at spring training. Now, does that come to fruition? Maybe, maybe not. And I still think there's tons of holes on this roster that needs to be filled, and efforts for them to make any kind of noise to, be a playoff team, such as starting pitching. Because even when Chris Sale comes back, whenever he does, what kind of pitcher is he going to be post Tommy John? We don't know. And even if you have Chris Sale, you still need another starter in that rotation. Plus the bullpen, can you really rely on it this year? Because you sure hell couldn't do it last year. So if anything, I really think that the big problem for this team will be pitching.
Definitely.
Because at times last year, as much as the Red Sox sucked, they were really good hitting and they sucked a lot at hitting. And I think, having Alex Cora back will do a massive thing for a lot of players. Bogarts, Devers, you have Cordero coming in now. We'll see if he makes the team or not. But a lot of the other young guys, too, are going to have to step up and make a lot of plays for this team. And will they be able to make that call is, I think, probably their second issue is their young players' performance.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Yeah, the main issue is probably going to be the pitching. If guys who struggled last year hitting just have a bounce back season, great. Yeah, pitching again is an issue. A lot of guys right now in spring training have been struggling pitching. But other than that, they'll compete. They'll be competitive and just stumble at the worst times, and it'll cost them at the end of the season. Like they'll mess up certain games that at the end of the season, if you looked at the standings, they could have very well maybe competed for the second wild card spot, but they didn't, and it's fine if they don't.
Uh-oh. Losing power?
The light just went off. I haven't moved in 2 hours, except for just barely slight movements, but yeah, that happens. All right. Now we're going to get into probably the bigger talking points.
Yes,
In
sir.
Boston sports.
Here we go.
The New England Patriots. So actually, since we've been talking, they made a trade.
Oh, I gotta go check. I don't have my phone out.
What
happened?
Nothing big.
Okay.
Ryan Izzo got traded for a 7th round pick.
Oh, that's exciting. To who?
It was to the Raiders, I think it was.
Great.
Yeah. No, Texans. Which, so Ryan Izzo got traded to the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
That could very well be the first trade of another trade between the Patriots and the Texans later this offseason.
Uh-oh. Are you hinting at something?
Or sooner than that.
Are you hinting at something?
I'm just gonna put this out there. As the days go by, as the hours tick by, it makes more sense to me that Deshaun Watson could very well be traded to the New England Patriots.
I got to ask you this before you go any further. What's the package? Because we've heard rumors of Russell Wilson trade to other teams, and the Seahawks asking price is starting with 3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
And that's for Russell Wilson. So what is this proposed deal if you were Bill Belichick to the Texans for Deshaun Watson?
It'll definitely be a lot of picks. First round next year, maybe the first round the year after that. Second and thirds, and then probably like a 6th and 7th. Along with Stephon Gilmore, and I want to say Dante Hightower.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he's a generational quarterback.
Like this, top 5 quarterback right now.
Stuff like this does not happen at all, where a franchise has to trade their franchise quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Belichick is going to look at it and say, this guy can get me one more ring before I need to retire. And after that, the Patriots will still be in great hands because he'll be here for probably the rest of his career. So he's really doing himself a solid and the team, the franchise, years down the road, multiple, maybe a couple more titles. So yeah, that's why I'm saying Deshaun Watson could very well be a Texan. Do I see it happening? Maybe.
You mean a Patriot?
As a Patriot, yeah. As the days go by, it does make more and more sense to me. But I also know that it's unlikely to happen. They have enough space for it. They have enough space for him, cap-wise.
They do. And I feel like one thing that the Patriots have over everybody else is that, New England connection with, what's his name? Nick Caserio. See, I want to say Caruso, the point guard for the Lakers. But yeah, it's like that's like the only connection. But if you look at the Miami Dolphins, who have 2 first-round picks this year, they can throw in Tua, and Miami, beautiful weather, nice, good coach, and Brian Flores. I mean, obviously, Deshaun Watson can decide where he wants to go, and the Patriots, as of now, obviously. Exactly. As of now, obviously, the Patriots are in a much better position than the Miami Dolphins are. And if you asked this question a week ago, I'd probably say the Dolphins. It makes a lot of sense. If Deshaun Watson wants to win now, it makes a lot of sense. If he just wants to collect his checks and live in a beautiful environment, then Miami's the way to go. But it all depends on what Watson wants to do. And I don't know if I'm still not sold that the Texans want to trade Deshaun Watson. I'm still not sold. It makes a lot of sense if Deshaun Watson doesn't want to play. But at the end of the day, are you just going to let that guy just sit there and, pay his fines and not get anything for him? Because you have teams out there offering a ton of draft picks and a ton of this and a ton of that. And it's like, at some point, you got to answer the phone and entertain it at least. I mean, whether you make the deal or not, you got to answer the phone. And if at the end of the day, I don't see him getting traded anywhere but Miami, just because the Miami package, I think, can be put together so much better. And I don't know if other teams can come close to that if you don't have multiple picks in the first round in any year.
Yeah, I mean picks are always valuable.
They're gold.
Especially in
First
the
round picks
NFL.
are gold.
Definitely. I mean, that's what you see mostly when it comes to big name player getting traded. Like we saw the Bills, they traded their first round pick for Stephon Diggs.
Mm-hmm.
And that first round pick ended up being Justin Jefferson. So both sides won. That stuff can happen. But with the Patriots, it would actually also be this year. I forgot to mention this year's first round pick. This year's first round pick would have to go along with next year's, and then the seconds and thirds and whatever else. But yeah, you mentioning Miami, that's a team that I would see most likely Deshaun Watson going to, only because of the return.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like Deshaun, he has a no trade clause, so he can go wherever, and it would probably be Miami. They haven't yet. They really have not made any signings offensively, but the Dolphins they can be sneaky good if Deshaun Watson gets traded there. I still like Tua. I still think that he just hasn't. It was his first season last year.
He didn't really have a chance last year. They had no receivers. They were all injured.
So if the Dolphins are going to trade for Deshaun Watson, it would have to be Tua. But I hope the Dolphins are smart enough to realize that your quarterback could be just as good as Deshaun Watson based off his college career. I mean, his first season, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. Obviously, he couldn't close out games. He had really no offense. But they need to realize that just because you're bringing in a better quarterback immediately does not make you immediately better. Like, you got to boost up the offense. So, yes, Miami would make the most sense. But there's circumstances that around Miami that wouldn't make a trade for Deshaun Watson reasonable.
I agree.
So that's why the Patriots are coming in. And I mean, if not Miami or the Patriots, I don't know what the other team would be. I don't really see the Jets being a fitting candidate.
I think it would make no sense for the Jets. Yeah. I mean, they have the second overall pick. If they want to get a quarterback, just get obviously a proven Deshaun Watson is, much better asset than a rookie Zach Wilson or whoever you want to throw in as that second quarterback. But the difference is you have him for 4 or 5 years under that rookie contract, which is a huge team-friendly number. And there's no pressure to really, be in the playoffs. But if you trade for Deshaun Watson, there's going to be pressure on you to be in the playoffs. There is. So, I mean, I feel like the Jets may be the only other team that it would make sense for. But if you trade Sam Darnold, get some draft picks back, use your second rounder on the second overall, on whoever your favorite, second best quarterback is behind Trevor Lawrence, then you can use those other picks from the Darnold trade and, rebuild the team that way, because they have a couple nice pieces over there. But I mean, they're so far behind everybody else basically in the league. So would it even make sense to trade for Deshaun Watson if I'm the Jets? I don't think so. And if I'm Miami, if you look at Miami, they got 2 picks in the first round, the 3rd overall and what is it, the 17th overall, something like that. So it's like you have 2 insanely valuable picks right there that you can use to help rebuild and surround Tua, because yes, he didn't have a good season. He didn't play half the season because he was back up. And when he did play, he didn't have any weapons around him. So if you go out there and draft pieces to be around him, whether it's a Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith kind of player at 3, and then someone else at 17 to maybe, bolster the defense. Okay, now we have like a good young group down in Miami. And I think trading for Deshaun Watson over there makes more sense than it is in New York or for New England. But if he's traded to New England, they're in win now mode. But are the Jets in win now mode with Deshaun Watson? No. Are the Dolphins in win now mode if they have Deshaun Watson? Maybe. Yes, but no. I mean, they're not going to.
Yeah.
So what kind of package could the Patriots or any team really put together for Deshaun Watson when the asking price from Seattle for Wilson is 3 first-round picks and 2 starters? Like, that's tough to use or to come up with, I should say. That's why I'm kind of on the side that Deshaun Watson won't get traded. I mean, maybe Ryan Izzo maybe he'll be thinking like, "Who, Ryan Izzo? I want to throw it to him. He's my weapon."
No way. But no, he's absolutely going to get traded. Deshaun will get traded because the Texans, even though it's like nothing major, they signed Tyrod Taylor the other day.
Yes, I did see that.
So
I wanted to talk about that.
how I'm looking at it is that they signed Tyrod Taylor to be their quarterback next season.
To replace
They know at some point Watson is that pissed off at them, he's not going to play for them. And so instead of just letting him sit on the bench, you have to get something, because he's if he said it that he's not going to play for the Texans ever again, he means it. So that's why he will get traded. To who, we don't know. Hopefully the Patriots, maybe the Patriots. But I mean, he's not the only quarterback that I could see being here next season. So I'm going to start off with this. The Jacksonville Jaguars. They have signed a bunch of guys. They had more cap space than you did this offseason than Patriots did this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And they've made moves. They brought in some weapons. I don't know them off the top of my head, but they brought in weapons. They also had the first overall pick. And that first overall pick is likely going to be used on Trevor Lawrence, who is a really good quarterback. They have Gardner Minshew.
Oh,
Gardner
I love
Minshew,
this.
you already know it.
Yeah, keep going.
Gardner Minshew,
Going.
as good as a player he is, they don't need him to be a backup.
Mm-hmm.
So they are likely going to trade him, and a team that could fit him is the New England Patriots. And they've been taking calls. It was reported, I think, yesterday that they've been taking calls on Gardner Minshew. So hopefully the Patriots are one of them. But what do you think about that, Gardner Minshew? Minshew Mania.
I remember talking about this on one of my episodes about, Gardner Minshew now being available because they're going to draft Trevor Lawrence, obviously. So is Minshew just going to be a backup? Sure, maybe. I mean, that's kind of what he was supposed to be, but he's shown that he can play. I mean, he's shown that he can actually throw the ball and make plays on a terrible Jaguars team. And I went on to say, like, oh, if you can give him a couple pieces and put him with a great coach in Belichick, then he could become something. He could become someone. And I was a big advocate before, obviously, the Patriots re-signed Cam Newton, that they should bring in Gardner Minshew because
Me too.
Low risk, high reward, rookie contract. He's got great fashion. He's got a nice little stash and the jorts. I mean, he's going to be a fan favorite around here because people love that stuff. I think there's and even bring him in. You could draft someone else to play behind him or whatever. Or if Minshew sucks, you put in the rookie. It's such a low risk, high reward because the Jaguars are going to draft a quarterback anyway. So there's no pressure to trade Minshew. It makes so much sense. You trade like a 5th round pick, 4th round pick or whatever. You bring in Minshew, but now that they have Cam Newton, I'm like kind of second guessing myself because I really feel like a lot of, analysts and reporters around the league really think that Cam Newton is the guy this year.
They know absolutely nothing about Cam or the Patriots. They just know that because he's Cam Newton, that's all.
Superman.
That's all they need to know is that he's Cam Newton. They probably still think he has MVP season Cam Newton left in him, but he doesn't. We saw what he was last year. He sucks. He's not going to return to that.
He's abysmal. And early in the season, before he got COVID, he showed some nice flashes of running the ball, but there was nothing of him passing the ball. And that's the biggest thing of why I didn't want him to come back is because he's not a passer.
He can't throw.
He can't throw it. And bringing in tight ends, so they're obviously going to run more shorter routes than your receivers are, helps. I mean, if you don't bring James White back, which is, another tangent I can go on, to, be that nice safety net in the backfield, you can't rely on Cam Newton to push the ball down the field. We saw it last year. It didn't work. Now, could things change over the course of a full offseason with New England? Sure. But am I willing to bank on it? No. And that's why I was a big advocate to move on from Cam Newton, whether it was Minshew or trading for Deshaun Watson, signing Tyrod Taylor, which I was a fan of, drafting a rookie in the draft. I like Tyrod Taylor. I mean, he shows a lot of good things. He's not going to win. He's not going to lose you any games. He can make some plays. He's smart with the ball. And when he has started, he's shown some nice little flashes, whether it was up in Buffalo or I guess one game with the Chargers last year. Oh, with the Browns, when he was with the Browns too, a couple of years ago. He was nice. He makes plays.
Yeah, I guess he could have made a little sense here. But Cam, obviously my Minshew take made more sense before we re-signed Cam Newton. But as a fan, you did not want to see him back. I was pissed when I saw that they re-signed him.
That mad, huh?
I was not happy.
Okay.
Don't get me started on it.
No, no,
But
no.
as like a non-biased Patriots fan, I was kind of expecting Cam to be brought back. I kind of expected him to be back because
Mhm.
it just seemed like a Belichick move, and obviously it happened. But now you need to look at another quarterback. You have to look at another quarterback. You got to bring in another quarterback. Gardner Minshew would make sense being behind like a mentor of Cam Newton. I mean, Brian Hoyer, he's a free agent. I'd let him walk, even though he's Michigan State dog. You gotta let
This
him
guy.
go.
Michigan
I told you
State.
I'm not gonna let it. I'm not gonna let
No,
Michigan
no,
State
no.
go. I can bring it up every chance I got.
Honestly, if you have the option to, you absolutely should.
I
You
wanted to bring
might
up
as
Torrey.
well.
I wanted to bring up Torrey Krug when we were talking about the Bruins, but because
If
he's
Michigan
Michigan
State
State,
loses though in the game tonight, then I don't want to hear nothing of it. I want to hear no more Michigan State.
yeah, you know, if you were to be around me during this game tonight and they somehow lose, yeah, it's not gonna be great. But getting back to the Patriots, Brian Hoyer, he's probably gonna be walk. He would probably walk.
Yeah, there's
I
no
don't
need to
know.
have them.
I don't know what the hell they're gonna do with Jarrett Stidham. I don't know what their plan is with Jarrett Stidham. But I saw some breaking news: Mitch Trubisky to the Bills. Wow,
He's gonna learn behind Josh Allen.
that doesn't
That's
make
that makes not a lot of sense. I mean, is it a one? It
no,
has
not
to
at
be a
all.
1 year deal. I mean, just to
No,
kind of refix
no
his
numbers just
career a
yet.
little bit.
I've never liked Mitch Trubisky. I've never liked him coming out of UNC. Just he played a couple games and that was it.
He was taken over Patrick Mahomes. Don't forget that.
Yeah, I don't
Never
know what
let
it's
that
like to be a
die.
Bears fan. I don't know what it's like to be a Bears fan. They just can't get anything right.
No. I mean,
But
and then they go out and sign Andy Dalton instead of trading for Russell Wilson. Yikes. What a time.
yeah. Um, but with Cam Newton, like what was a quarterback situation? Brian Hoyer's gone. I don't know what to do with Jarrett Stidham. Cam Newton, he can't be the only starting quarterback next year. You got to bring in somebody else be be the backup. Gardner Minshew would make more sense because he's on his rookie contract still. So you're not paying him all that much. And with Deshaun Watson, even though it's a major contract, it would still fit in the cap, and then you could still sign another guy. And with
I'm
Cam, it would be a good. I think it would be a good two QB system. Cam and Deshaun, put them out there at the same time, or not at the same time, but like back and forth.
yeah, yeah. I like I'm only convincing myself that the signing of Cam is okay, or I guess I should say the re-signing of Cam is okay if they take a quarterback in the draft
They
to
have to.
have. I mean, whether it's Stidham, they bring in Minshew, or they sign somebody else, you have to have a quarterback behind him because I think we can both agree that Jarrett Stidham's not the guy. And if he was the guy, I don't think Cam Newton would have been here last year.
Well, we know nothing about him, so
Nor
I'm not
if
ready to say he's not the guy.
I mean,
We
I
know
just feel like
absolutely
that he would have
nothing.
had more play last year if Belichick had high hopes for him. I mean, if Belichick thought that he was the guy, then maybe Cam Newton wouldn't be here. We've seen some nice flashes and nice plays of Jarrett Stidham before, yes. But is it enough? I mean, he throws a good ball. Don't get me wrong. He can throw a very good ball, but that does nothing if you don't have the other intangibles as a quarterback. I really still have high hopes for Jarrett Stidham. He's going into year 3. We'll see what he can do. He's been behind Brady. He's been behind Newton now. If you want to take Brian Hoyer's, mentorship for anything, that might mean something to him. It's just very interesting to see Jarrett Stidham in a situation because the beginning of last offseason, he was the heir to Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Then they bring in Cam Newton, and now he's kind of like muddled in the middle because there's a bunch of conversation now around Cam Newton, bringing in another quarterback, drafting another quarterback. We'll just have to see what the Patriots do with that second quarterback spot because bringing it back Cam Newton kind of puts a wrinkle in that in terms of Stidham's development, drafting a quarterback, signing somebody else, trading for somebody else. It'll be very, very interesting to see what the quarterback room looks like come the preseason or even just week 1.
Yeah. Now, quarterback is something I mean, it's a big mess right now. Like, you have to bring in another quarterback. You absolutely have to. Just because you re-sign Cam Newton doesn't mean that you're going to rely on him all season.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to struggle. He's absolutely going to struggle. I want to see another guy with him. Deshaun Watson for that 2 QB system, maybe. Gardner Minshew for an emergency backup or to replace him for a game, maybe. Drafting a guy. Let's talk about the draft end. So obviously, unless you trade up, you're not getting any of the top quarterbacks.
No.
You're not getting any of the top quarterbacks. So I mentioned this yesterday. The quarterback that I'm eyeing the most, he may not be a big name, but I like what I've seen from him. I like what I saw from him this season.
Okay.
Kellen Mond of Texas A&M.
He has a lot of good flash, and I think a lot of people are undervaluing what he can bring because he's played at a good school, a reputable school, Texas A&M. Obviously,
he's records there.
Exactly, and like obviously, it's very hard to judge, quarterback play in college because there's not a lot of good defense. Quarterbacks that play well in college don't necessarily translate to the NFL, but I think Kellen Mond has some good intangibles to be an NFL quarterback. I mean, he's no Trevor Lawrence, he's no Zach Wilson, obviously, and you're not going to get any of those guys, like you said, unless you trade up, which the Patriots could easily do and draft maybe the last one of the group of five. But, whether it's Trey Lance or Mac Jones, Justin Fields, are you going to be happy with that, depending on what you have to give up? Sure. But is it worth it, though? And that's why I think regardless of where this quarterback comes from in the draft, the Patriots need to draft one either way if Cam Newton's going to be the starting quarterback. And I do like Kellen Mond. I really do. I think, like I said, I think he's very undervalued. He put up the school records, like you mentioned, and he's played there. I mean, he's a senior, right? He's a senior. So, I mean, he's played 4 years there, and he's got that experience. And I'm a firm believer that seniors out of college for football and basketball are smarter players. They may not be better, but they're at least smarter players than those who come out earlier. And I would not be against it if, Kellen Mond is a Patriot, maybe in the third round. It seems like kind of where he might land, third, fourth round.
Yeah, that's what the projection I'm looking at says, like 126.
So I mean,
whatever round that is.
With the comp picks, I think that pushes it to the fourth round. But I mean, that's okay. That works for me.
Definitely. But I saw a couple of his games this season. He looked good. He looked really good. He was a big reason why Texas A&M came back to beat UNC in the Orange Bowl. He played a big reason in that. And I mean, they won 14-1. They only lost to Alabama, the national champions. My co-host in GUINEY'S Sports Pod Radio, Josh, he's a big Florida fan. They beat Florida week 3. And I mean, he wasn't happy about that game, obviously, but he liked what he saw from Kellen Mond in that game. And yeah, I feel like that he's going to have a great career. He's going to have a great career. He's going to be like the quarterback that you didn't expect to succeed, but did succeed.
I think with Kellen Mond, his he did play so well, and your co-host isn't going to like this, but I really think Texas A&M should have been the four seed, and Florida should have been out, and they should have been the 5th playing in the Orange Bowl. I think if Kellen Mond and Texas A&M were in the college football playoffs,
they should have, not Notre Dame.
And Notre Dame too. We could have seen Texas A&M, and we could have saw Kellen Mond on the big stage. His draft value could have gone up a little bit more. And that's who I meant to say, Notre Dame. Thank you. And we could have saw his draft value go up. And now maybe we're looking at a second round pick, because if you make some plays on the biggest stage, that helps drive draft value. I mean, you look at Justin Fields, he made huge plays in the semifinals game, and he's a potential top 5 pick. I mean, a lot of people have him on the bubble of 5, 10, 15, whatever, but Kellen Mond could have been in that same conversation as the 6th best quarterback, but now you're kind of looking at him as the 8th best quarterback, and that's unfortunate. But I mean, if he falls to the 3rd, 4th, 5th round to the Patriots, you're getting a diamond in the rough there. So,
and they need to take it,
and they have to take it. I mean, we saw Jake Fromm from Georgia fall to the 5th round to the Bills. And Jake Fromm had a phenomenal freshman year of college. And then sophomore, junior year, he kind of falls off.
Fell apart. He was horrible.
He fell apart. But if a player falls like that, who has the potential, and we've seen the potential from Fromm, at least his first year, play very well, what's so bad about taking a chance on that? And not saying that Kellen Mond's a chance, but you kind of have to do it.
It's a risk worth taking.
Low risk, high reward, because at the end of the day, you're spending a mid-round pick on him, maybe. So what? It's not like you're spending a top 2 pick on him or a top 2 round pick on him.
Yeah,
Might as well do it. He could be the future of the quarterback, future quarterback of the Patriots. Learning behind Cam Newton wouldn't be terrible.
yeah, and that's what exactly where I was just about to go. So he's a good rushing quarterback. In his career, he had where is it? Over 1,500 yards rushing, a couple touchdowns. So I'd say putting him behind Cam Newton, probably one of the best rushing quarterbacks of all time.
Mhm.
It's great development, great mentorship. It's something that would benefit him really well, being behind one of the best rushing quarterbacks of all time. Because he obviously has the skills to do it. I mean, he ran at one point the most rushing yards in a game was 117, the last game of his junior season.
Yep.
He ran for 117 yards. Something like that is really good, especially in like the SEC. There's not so many rushing quarterbacks as there are like throwing quarterbacks. Like you're really more of a power thrower than runner. That's more reserved for like the Pac-12, Big 12. So him coming out of the SEC, there's also a lot of SEC quarterbacks that are good. Some good SEC quarterbacks in the league right now.
Mm-hmm. SEC is a far superior conference for college
Absolutely,
football. It's if you go to the
absolutely.
SEC, no matter what school in that
You
conference,
know you're you know you're doing something right if you went to an SEC school.
exactly. And that's another reason why, Kellen Mond kind of looks nice is because he's played against a tough competition, especially with COVID, where it's a conference only schedule. You're playing Alabama, you're playing LSU. I mean, the competition doesn't get any better than that. I mean, LSU wasn't that good this year, but
Yeah,
the
I
point
was about
stays
to
the same.
say.
The point stays the same.
Yeah, but like at Texas A&M, they hired Jimbo Fisher a few years ago, so they're kind of in a little bit of a rebuild to bring in recruits, having guys come to a Texas A&M that wouldn't originally go there because of Jimbo Fisher's name value.
Mhm.
So I mean, Texas A&M they're gonna have a good couple of years ahead of them. So this last season where they go, what was it, 7-1, 8-1? I forget what it was, but I'm not about to count all the W's on my screen. It's a good school for a quarterback to be coming out of right now. And I'd
Mhm.
say that just because the one season that he really shines is his senior year, that's another risk worth taking because they're building up. They had some great running backs, receivers. So I'm looking forward to what Texas A&M has to build. Maybe more future quarterbacks that the Patriots could be possibly looking at if things don't work out. But him
9-1,
coming out,
by the way.
what?
9-1, Texas A&M.
All right, yeah,
9-1.
yeah. There's a bunch of W's on my screen. I mean, they deserve it on. They were a
Something
good
something
school.
in one with that one L.
Yeah,
But no, I completely
uh,
agree with you. I really
yeah.
do. And I still stay, I mean, is trading up for a quarterback really worth it? Off face value, yes.
No.
Well, off face value,
Well,
yes.
yeah, yes,
But when you're looking at the Patriots situation, when you have Cam Newton for one more year, and then what other moves that may be made, and if Kellen Mond falls, okay, now it's not worth it. You can take that 15th overall and get Micah Parsons or a receiver or something. I mean, maybe not a receiver at this point when you just signed 2 guys,
yeah,
but I mean, the point stays the same. It's not worth it for the Patriots at anymore. So I'm so happy you actually brought up Kellen Mond because I was going to try to convince myself that trading up was the way to go. But when you look at the rest of the quarterback class, 5 guys could easily go in the top 10.
and they
And
will, and they
and they
will.
will, and they absolutely will, because it's a quarterback driven league. Quarterback's the most important position in all of sports. And if you don't have a quarterback, you're porked, you're screwed.
Yeah,
And tons of teams need quarterbacks. I mean, you see quarterbacks being traded, you see quarterbacks rumored to be traded, signing everywhere. I mean, but when you can guarantee yourself one, I mean, even if you have to spend a 3rd round pick on the guy, just even if you have to
it's
you
not
know,
so.
reach, even if you have to reach, do it. Do it because you're going to make all of us Patriot fans happy because we'll have a future to look forward to because we all know Cam Newton is not the future. He's
I
not.
know.
He's a nice little bridge guy who can make some flashy plays, though he can't throw. He's not the worst quarterback out there. But when you draft a guy like Kellen Mond, even if you were to go to trade up for somebody, there's still a future. But if you can get Kellen Mond in the 3rd round by,
By just
there's a
not
future
making
for
any,
it's
by
in us
not moving.
to look at.
Yeah,
So
I
that's what
wasn't
I
that
stand on
when
it.
you yeah when you said was it worth it to trade up for a quarterback, and I said no. I was talking about this season with the Patriots because I did not want them to trade
Mm.
up for a quarterback. I think all the teams that are in desperate need of a quarterback, which isn't so much you, but the teams that are in desperate need of a quarterback are going to make those moves to trade up.
Exactly. And then what are
Trey
you going to
Lance,
do for those picks, for
yeah,
that pick?
Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, uh, Mac Jones. I'm not a fan of Mac Jones. I feel like
Really?
he's overhyped. He's so overhyped. He's
Okay.
a second or third round quarterback, and he's going to go
Wow.
top 15. He's going to go top 15.
See,
Justin Fields, uh, yeah. So I mean, all those guys, they're going to get drafted by the teams that really need them. Even Mac Jones, who really should not be drafted as high as he's going to be drafted. I'm not a fan of his. He was in a
loaded team.
all-time offense. He was on an all-time offense for 1 year. It just doesn't make much sense to me why he should be drafted right now because he really has not proved himself. He was
Hmm.
on a great team surrounded by great guys. If an NFL team can draft all those guys and Mac Jones, maybe it'll work out, but it's not. So that's why I'm not a fan of Mac Jones. He's just being overhyped. He's not worth a first round pick. He's a second or third round pick.
I was anti Mac Jones the end of college football season, early into the off season. And then you hear reports, rumors, you watch a little bit of extra film and you kind of start to understand, he brings, he's a very smart quarterback. He doesn't make bad passes. He doesn't throw the ball away, or he doesn't throw it to the other team, I should say. And yes, he had Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle to throw the ball to. And when college football defense is not really a thing, those guys are open all the damn time, especially when they're that good. So yes, I mean, Mac Jones' performance has been skewed a little bit because of who he was around. You look at Tua last year, had the same supporting cast with the exception of a couple of drafted receivers. And look at him now, he's underperforming. Obviously, coming off injury, no receivers in Miami. So is Tua even a bust and a product of the system? Maybe. I mean, that's a conversation that's going to have to be had very shortly. Could Mac Jones be the same thing? Absolutely. I mean, he's not mobile. He can't run. So you have to rely on him throwing the ball. And if you just give him an average weapons around him, is he going to be able to make those same plays that he did in Alabama? That's very up in the air. So I completely agree with your take that, he's going to be well, drafted ahead of where he should be. But in a league where quarterbacks are so important, teams are going to be taking that chance. But I do think that he is the smartest quarterback in the room. He does remind me a lot more of your traditional pocket quarterback. I don't want to make the comparison, but just the type of player like a Tom Brady, where he's just stationary, you throw the ball. He reminds me of that kind of guy. I mean, Tom Brady
Mac
doesn't move.
Jones and Tom Brady in the same sentence. Wow.
Tom Brady doesn't move. Peyton Manning doesn't move. They're both stationary pocket quarterbacks, and Mac Jones is the same thing. So it can work, at least here in New England, because you had a immobile quarterback for 20 years. So if Belichick was to bring in Mac Jones, for example, it could potentially work. But at the end of the day, I don't think he's worth it either, even though I've tried to convince myself that it is. But when you bring up the idea of a Kellen Mond in the third round, that's way too good. That's way
Yeah.
too good.
It's calling the Patriots. It's calling the Patriots. And it's calling, to be realistic, it's also calling a bunch of other teams. Not just the Patriots
Mm-hmm.
who need a quarterback. It's calling a bunch of other teams who could use a guy like him 2 or 3 years down the road. But in any case, those are the quarterbacks: Deshaun Watson, Gardner Minshew, Kellen Mond. One of those three quarterbacks has to be on this team by the start of the season. Absolutely. Otherwise, I'm gonna be
Jared
scared.
Stidham.
Jared Stidham. Honestly, I would be okay with it because we know absolutely nothing about him.
Mm-hmm.
So to put him out there to start a couple of games, I'm okay with it. I wanted to see him. I wanted to see him start the Jets game, the last one of the season.
I want to see him start the last two games when the Patriots were eliminated from the playoffs. Throw him in there. See what you got. I mean,
You have nothing to play for. Why are you trying to compete? It's the
exactly.
Belichick mindset. It's the Belichick mindset. You go out there to win. You never go out there to intentionally lose. You go out there to win, and he's gonna follow that until the day he retires. So
Day he dies.
I was gonna say the day he dies, but I mean he's gonna retire soon. He's not gonna live out his life coaching.
How many more years do you think he has?
I think I said this on the radio yesterday. I think like 3 or 4. 3 or
Okay.
4 years. which is like the same amount of time to build a championship caliber team around Deshaun Watson. And then after that Super Bowl, he'll probably call it a career.
I'm thinking whenever he can get past Don Shula for the most wins, he has 341s. So whenever he can get to 342 at the end of that season, I think is when Bill will call it. Whether it's in 3-4 years, whether it's in 7-8 years, I think that's Bill Belichick's goal.
Maybe. Yeah, I forgot about that. So that would also make a lot of sense. I also think he wants to just prove that it wasn't all Tom Brady. Like I stay away from that argument about who was the real one, Tom Brady or Bill Belichick.
Mhm.
I'm staying away from that because they're both incredible during this time span.
I agree. And I was a big proponent that it was both of them. I mean, why can't it be 50-50? Guy who makes the game plan, guy who executes it. Why can't it be that way? And then you see Brady go to the Bucs and win a Super Bowl, and now the conversation favors in Tom Brady's. And the one thing I will always say against Bill Belichick is look at his career before the Patriots. What kind of coach was he then? Look at the team he had before when he came to the Patriots before Brady. What kind of coach was he then? Then Tom Brady steps in. That's kind of why I skew Brady, but obviously this is an argument for another day, which we won't get into, but I just got to lay the groundwork for that. I still think at the end of the day that it was 50-50, but
definitely
a lot of people would disagree with that.
Definitely. It was definitely 50-50, but yeah, to most people, there has to be one clear cut, the better person who was better. There has to be somebody like that. All right. So we were just talking about quarterbacks. Let's get over to the free agency and who they've signed so far.
Tons of people. Oh my God.
It started off with Matthew Judon, linebacker, and then it was Jonnu Smith. The list keeps going on. But the most surprising signing to me was Hunter Henry. I was not at all expecting this to happen. After the Jonnu Smith signed, I thought, all right, now they're done with tight ends. I still thought there was a chance that they would draft Kyle Pitts with 15 overall. That was my original plan, was for them to draft Kyle Pitts. Once they signed Jonnu Smith, I thought there was a small chance of Kyle Pitts being drafted, but then they bring in Hunter Henry. And that just really came out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere too, and like you would think that they would either invest that money elsewhere to maybe Kenny Golladay or a receiver.
Exactly.
But instead, especially after signing Jonnu Smith, if they sign one or the other, we're happy with that. And next thing you know, they're signing both the best two tight ends on the market right now, who are both getting the same amount of money. And it's like, whoa, wait a second, we might see a completely different offense, because who did you bring in for wide receiver? Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne. Like, let's slow down there. Julian Edelman is older. He's, a shell of himself at this point. It's going to be a 2 tight end formation for the Patriots the entire way next year. And that's going to cause matchup problems for other teams, because either you have a linebacker or a safety traditionally on a tight end. And if they throw safeties on them, the Patriots are going to, the defense will have to be in at least a nickel set, which would make mix matches for, then you throw in the run game and those two guys can block. It's like, whoa, we might see a completely different team offensively from the Patriots, especially if Cam Newton's the starting quarterback. As I've said, and we both agree on, he can't throw the ball downfield.
Yeah. So, I mean, thinking of like tight ends, like you'd think there's going to be a lot more red zone production, because like with a tight end, it would be more short passes. So that's where Cam Newton could possibly excel with them. But I mean, otherwise, I'm not really a big fan of Hunter Henry. I feel like he was a little overrated. I mean, I looked at the stats and looking at him before and just knowing about him before, his most receiving yards in the season was 652. The most touchdowns in the season was 8. Now it's his rookie year in 2016. Since then, he has only the most in the season is 5. He tore his ACL in 2018, so who knows? There could possibly be some future injury-prone possibilities down the road.
Issues there, yeah.
Yeah, issues. And everything else, it just is not appealing to me.
He hasn't played a full 16-game season yet.
Yeah.
And I mean, that just banks off of that durability point that you were making with his injuries. It's like, how durable is he going to be? And there's a lot of questions there with his health, but if you put him in the right system, could it happen? Could it be poor quarterback play in San Diego and in Los Angeles? Maybe.
Yeah, and that was another point that I brought up was the quarterback play. I was Philip Rivers for like 4 years, and then a rookie Justin Herbert, who, even though he really excelled, um, the whole system was a mess because of the coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
So really, everything that was around him could possibly be a reason why he didn't achieve a potential that he hadn't reached yet. So signing him with the Patriots, it does make sense because hopefully and maybe Belichick will tap that untapped potential. Um, but as of right now, I'm not a fan of it because that potential hasn't been proven to me yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, in saying that, I want to see him do good. I hope he does good, but I have low expectations right now for him.
This reminds me a lot of when the Patriots signed Stephon Gilmore right as free agency started a few years ago, where Gilmore was a really good cornerback, but he wasn't who he is now. Gilmore was obviously younger then, and it was a big investment because Belichick was kind of banking on that untapped potential, yet, obviously not being in the Patriots system. And could we see the same thing with Hunter Henry, where he becomes a top 5 tight end? Absolutely. I mean, he has the skill set. He has everything you want from a tight end, and he just needs to put it together. Could have been the shitty coaches that were out in LA, Anthony Lynn. You could point to that reason. Absolutely. You could point to the ACL reason, but that also brings up other concerns, like we've mentioned. It's not that I don't like this signing. It's just a weird signing, especially when you sign Jonnu Smith a day before. It's like, why both? Like, why not just get the one and then use that money elsewhere? But I mean, who
Yeah,
knows? I mean, this could be, Belichick, trying to refigure his offense to fit Cam Newton and, kind of rolling with, who they brought in at wide receiver as supplements to, Henry Smith. But it's very confusing. It's very interesting. And I know a lot of people, a lot of teams, liked Hunter Henry, and just very surprising that the Patriots were the ones that ended up getting him and, giving him that kind of money when you already had Jonnu Smith.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, right now they have a lot of room cap space. Again, if you bring in Deshaun Watson, his massive contract, you still have enough room for a major contract. I want them to go after a wide receiver.
I do too.
Curtis Samuel signed with the Redskins last night. So that really means Kenny Golladay is the one named wide receiver that is available.
Still out there, yeah.
Yeah, that's still out there. So I want the Patriots to really pursue him because I want a big name receiver, not a tight end, a big name wide receiver.
You and me both.
Yeah. And so this is obviously was all the room that you have, it would work. But obviously after these two tight end signings, it doesn't make sense for them to bring in a major wide receiver like this. Could they? The way they've been going around throwing money around.
Seems like they'll bring in anybody.
It wouldn't surprise me, but I wish they focused on the wide receiver position more than just Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne.
Ugh. What about Will Fuller?
Will Fuller, I mean, his best season was this season, and he was on drugs.
He's on drugs. He was injured. I'm good.
Him in. I could bring him in. I could bring him in, but it would be for something low, and he's probably not going to get something low.
Yeah.
So
it puzzles me so much. I mean, because the last report I saw, the Patriots were one of the top 3 teams to land Kenny Golladay, and money's not an issue right now, apparently, for the Patriots. But you would think they would have used that money that they used on Henry to push for Kenny Golladay, especially after getting Jonnu Smith, to really solidify a whole offense, just so it's not under basically one position. The tight end is your strongest position right now. Obviously, you want a well-versed offense where it's so unpredictable. Does bringing in Hunter Henry make that offense unpredictable? Sure. But your receivers, though, I mean, Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, you could have used that money and got yourself a Kenny Golladay. Would you rather have 2 B players or 1 A player? Goes to the same point we made with the Celtics earlier. I'd rather have that 1 A player, and that's Kenny Golladay. So yeah. Hopefully there's still another big move for the Patriots to make. If it's not Kenny Golladay, can we really be upset with everything else that they've done? No. But just bringing in Kenny Golladay, Will Fuller, if you want to entertain Juju Smith-Schuster, sure. But there's still definitely another shoe to drop, it seems like.
Yeah. So talking about wide receivers, he's not a free agent. You would have to trade for him.
Who?
Odell,
Oh, I
OBJ.
I love these. Even when he was with the Giants, I loved the idea of Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, he brings a lot of things that you don't have. You don't have the quickness. You don't have the flash. You don't have like that swagger, that attitude. Yes, you can argue that he bitches and complains sometimes, but I think that the production that he is capable of bringing is well worth it. You put him in the same building as Bill Belichick, sharpens him up nicely. He probably wants to win at this point. He already has that big contract extension that he got from the Giants. He does a ton of endorsements. I don't think money is the number one factor for him right now. He wants to solidify himself as one of the greats and win a Super Bowl. Could that be in Cleveland? Sure, but it feels like that they might be trying to move on from him one way or another. Coming off an ACL injury could be a lower price tag for him in terms of trading. I would love that idea. I really would.
Yeah, I mean, there's been pictures out on social media of Odell training with Cam, Julian Edelman, and somebody else from the Patriots. So I feel like
Oh,
that could be
I
like
saw that too.
yeah, I feel like that could be um, like a possible sign wanting of Odell wanting to be with Cam and Cam wanting Odell. I mean,
Mhm.
that would also look great for Cam because he would have a big name wide receiver to throw to who can get out there and make the tough catches that result from Cam throwing the ball poorly. So yeah, I wonder if Cam is talking to Belichick about pushing for Odell just because it would make Cam look better,
I mean, I would be totally
especially now that
okay.
he resigned with the Patriots.
Exactly. I would be totally okay if the Patriots traded that 15th overall for Odell Beckham Jr., just straight up.
Yeah,
I would be
me
totally
too.
okay with that because besides defensive help, what are you really going to get at that spot in the draft? Because it's so offensive heavy, the top part of the draft, and you've already made a huge amount of noise on the defensive side of the ball. You brought back Kyle Van Noy, Jalen Mills you signed, David Godchow you signed. So you've made noise there on defense. Dante Hightower's back. Yes, Micah Parsons, who it seems like it's projected to go at 15 to the Patriots, would be a nice linebacker from Penn State. But is he going to throw you over the hump? Maybe down the line. But if you're looking at right now, I think right now trading that 15th overall for Odell makes a lot of sense, especially when you have two A tight ends. You bring in Odell, pair him up with Julian Edelman. You got Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne. Maybe N'Keal Harry does something
Get
with
him out
his
of here.
time. I mean, who
Forget
knows?
Nikhil Harry. Forget Nikhil Harry.
He's
I'm
such a
done with him.
bum. He's such a
I'm done
bust.
with Nikhil
I mean,
Harry.
maybe you can package him up and try to ship him and get something back in return, but then, it doesn't look good on Bill in terms of drafting. We can only hope and pray that he does something, but I have low expectations for him.
Absolutely, he would probably be in a trade with Odell because
That'd
that
be
way you're going a wide receiver back.
that,
Maybe
what? I'd be
even
fine
like
with that.
Jacoby Myers.
I
Yeah,
like Jacoby Myers
I do
last
too.
year.
I do
He took
too.
us by surprise.
Yeah, and Demir Bird a little bit. Demir Bird is a free agent. I don't expect him to come back. Jacoby Myers, maybe he'll possibly get traded just because of who you brought in so far and
Mm-hmm.
who else you already have on the roster. Um, but yeah, Odell, I think would be a perfect fit here. I mean, he already has a good relationship with Cam off the field, so
Yep.
on the field it would probably excel. He would be a good pairing with the tight ends because, like you mentioned earlier, when talking about the tight ends and Kenny Galladay, if you just brought in one tight end and Kenny Galladay, your whole offense is wrapped up. Now that you have two, and if you're about to trade for a solid wide receiver in Odell, I mean, it's
Over the
wrapped up.
top. Just throw it right over the
It's
top.
double knotted. It's a
Yep.
double knotted wrapped up.
And bringing in another star receiver, it has to be a receiver, not a tight end at this point,
Definitely.
obviously. It would also help with the deficiencies of Cam Newton throwing the ball because
Yeah.
he'll have more options. You can make routes, that are shorter, screen plays, digs across the middle of the field, throw them and let the receiver make the play. Obviously, screens, like I mentioned, with the halfbacks, tight end screens, all that good stuff would really significantly help, Cam Newton become more comfortable since he's getting bashed upon so much for not being able to throw the ball as well as maybe he once did in Carolina. But double knotted with, Odell or Kenny Galladay makes a lot of sense. It it would really put the Patriots back in that elite conversation for a Super Bowl, even with Cam Newton as a quarterback. Does it put you over the top comparison to the Chiefs? No,
No, no way.
absolutely not. But it puts you right back in the division conversation, though, and it puts you as a top 3 seed. Well, yeah, you got to win the division to get a
Yeah,
top 4 seed. So it puts you right back there. You get a home game. But we just got to see what Bill Belichick does. He's had a quiet couple of days now, it seems, made a few minor moves, but I still think there's one more shoe to drop, whether it's through free agency or maybe trading leading up to the draft.
yeah. And I'm more expecting now. I am more expecting a trade than a signing.
Mhm.
Because I mean, it sounds like Kenny Galladay is really exploring his options. It was just reported that he spent last night in Chicago talking to the Bears. So they're trying to
Him
get
and
Andy
Allen Robinson. Ooh,
Isn't he?
he
I
got
thought he was available.
he
I
signed a
thought Allen.
franchise tag.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, so he's back with the Bears, even though it's kind of ass
All
for
right.
him. And now they got Andy Dalton throwing the ball. It's like, ugh.
I don't know. I don't know how to feel about Andy Dalton. I kind of liked him when he was on the Bengals, but I mean, I was younger back then. So, in
It'll
any
be very
case,
interesting wherever Kenny Galladay ends up because at this point he is that big ticket free agent that any team should be after.
yeah, it sounds like the Giants are really front runners. Uh,
Oh, that'd be a waste.
yeah.
That'd be a
Well,
waste.
I don't know what they're doing over there. I guess they really like Daniel Jones. I don't know how to feel about him right now. I haven't really seen much. I don't know what to expect.
Mhm.
But talking about the Patriots and the offense a little more, the running back position.
James
I
White,
like
just gonna say it. Keep going.
you a fan of his?
I love James White. He is the glue to the offense. He is. He is the glue to the offense. He is the safety net. He can do. He's not good running the ball, but he can pick up blitzes. He can do your screens. He can run receiving routes.
Yeah, he's a pass catching back.
He is everything you want from a pass catching back. You'll go from Kevin Falk to Shane Vereen to James White. There's no one behind James White to replace him if another team scoops him up and you move on from him. You're going to have a massive hole on that offense because the pass catching running back has been a part of the Patriots offense for almost 20 damn years. You have no one else behind. Do not tell me Shoney Michelle. Don't tell me Damian Harris,
All
excuse
right, so
me.
I'll stop you right there. And I'm not talking about Sony Michelle because although I feel like he has a little bit left in him,
Yes.
he has to prove himself. I feel like he kind of rebounded last year, but he needs to still prove himself. But Damian Harris is where it's
Great,
at.
great running back. He's not a pass catcher.
You don't need to be a pass catching running back if your
No.
position is named running back. You don't need to be that good at catching passes if you're a running back. It's a benefit, definitely benefit. But on offense with possibly Kenny Galladay or Odell, Hunter Henry, Johnny Smith, there's a bunch of options out there. Adding a running back who can catch passes is like an insurance policy.
What's wrong with an insurance policy when you have a
Well,
quarterback that can't throw?
obviously, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'd rather be able to see a running back run the ball than catch the ball. That's my priority right now when it comes to running back position
Mm-hmm.
is their running ability. And I think Damian Harris has what it takes, even though we didn't see him for a full year for some reason a couple years ago. And Sony Michel's had his struggles. I feel like Damian Harris, what we saw from him last year, it wasn't much, nothing flashy, but
He looked good.
it was a good sign to me that he could potentially fulfill a career in the NFL. And
He
so I want to see them protect Damian Harris. Maybe Sony Michel just
oh,
a little. I was not a fan of his, but he kind of brought me back to him last year. Not a
he
lot.
he
I think
definitely
he still
had
has a little
some.
left. He has a
Yeah,
little left to work on. Other than that, if it doesn't work out, if he completely falls apart again this year, get him out of here, just like Jeff Teague or Grant Williams or Kemba Walker.
get him out. Get him out. Anyone else?
Um, uh, good question. Not at the
Tristan
moment.
Thompson.
Maybe he was
All
decent.
right, get him out.
He's a decent get him out.
Get him
But if Sony Michel falls apart again and just struggles, definitely get him out. I like Damian Harris. If Sony Michel can do good, keep him. I'm not too concerned about James White. It sounds like he wants to go to Tampa Bay because it would be in Florida and closer to his parents. It would be closer to his parents, and they had the tragic accident a few months ago that took his mother's life. So that would make a lot of sense to me. And I feel like that is going to happen just because family is a big thing. I think he is a big family man. So yeah, Tampa makes a lot of sense.
And it also helps that Tom Brady is also down there. They just came off a Super Bowl. They could kind of use that, pass catching running back as well. I mean, that's a huge part of Tom Brady's offense, even. So, I mean, that just makes a whole lot of sense, especially when bringing back Gronkowski and Antonio Brown are question marks. I mean, they just tagged Chris Godwin. They could use that kind of a weapon. I mean, they can push the ball down the field, but that short game is huge for Tom Brady, as we know for 20 years, and he would love a player like that.
Yeah,
James White,
they could be losing Leonard Fournette also. So he'll
exactly.
be
So I
another
mean,
running back coming back in.
and LaShawn McCoy, I mean, he was nothing. He was a flat zero
Nothing.
for the Bucks. So it's like James White down there would make so much sense for many other reasons, like you mentioned. And if I'm James White, I'm entertaining that because look at the Patriots. Yeah, they made a bunch of moves, but you've been in this building now for what, 6 years? It seems like you don't have a problem moving on when you're moving on to or moving back to Tom Brady, I guess is the claim here. It's super. I love James White so much because he is everything that the Patriots need him to be from that position for what he needs to do. And he does it so well. He's one of the best pass catching running backs. And yes, a running back runs the ball, but the Patriots have their best success when they can do it by running the ball and by passing the ball from the backfield. You see Dion Lewis, you saw Shane Vereen, James White. LeGarrette Blount obviously wasn't a pass catcher, but he was that tempo man. You hand the ball off to LeGarrette Blount, you pass it to James White. That's just all part of the tempo. And I love that tempo idea with Damian Harris and James White. If they can replace James White, then I think losing him wouldn't be all too bad. But as it stands right now, there's no one just behind him in that role because that role is so important for this offense.
Yeah, and they could also bring back Rex Burkhead. He tore his ACL last season, and he's a free agent, I'm pretty sure. But they could possibly bring him back. I liked what I saw from him last year.
Mm-hmm.
He was playing really good, so I hope they bring him back because in that case, you would have three capable starting running backs. Not so much Sony Michel, but Damian Harris, Rex Burkhead, those two. That's really good enough. And then Sony Michel is again there,
and to
still
think
a decent running back.
And to think the Patriots drafted Sony Michel over Nick Chubb, just that boils in me every day.
Yeah, to think the Patriots drafted N'Keal Harry over
DK Metcalf,
3, 4, 5, 6, a number of different wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely a bunch of question marks when it comes to drafting and Bill Belichick, but as long as you win championships, I'm happy. The draft is irrelevant as long as you win titles. And right now, he needs to focus on the draft to win a title. So
it's a completely different spot. It's a completely different spot for Belichick this year. I mean, he's trying to buy a championship team. He's going to try to rebuild and retool the team in every way he possibly can because he doesn't want that notion that the dynasty was Brady, because as it stands right now, it kind of looking like that. But Bill Belichick definitely has the opportunity to kind of rewrite people's minds and opinions about that. So it's definitely going to be completely interesting to see what the Patriots do moving forward after making a massive splash already in free agency. Trading that first round pick for somebody is definitely a great option because of the past draft selections from Bill Belichick in the first round haven't been all that good. So it's something that's totally, feasible and understandable if the Patriots do deem that way because Belichick can draft. And we've seen tons of examples of that where picks have become busted.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, as long as it's a solid player who gets you to where you need to be,
make an impact.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a big hit like a Tom Brady in the 6th round. I mean, just a decent player for a couple of years in like the 3rd round is good enough, and then he'll fizzle out somewhere else. But
after he gets a big contract, and then they just fizzle out. Yep,
exactly.
We just need impact players at this point.
Yeah. So that brings me over to the defense. They've made a couple signings. Matthew Judon, obviously. Dietrich Wise came back.
Yep.
Jalen Mills, Devon Godchow from the Dolphins. Kyle Van Noy is back. 2-year deal for him. I'm happy about that. I like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Uh, I'm kind of looking forward to what the defense brings this season. If
I
they
I was
go,
just gonna say, I really feel like that this is going to be a exciting year because there's so many new names on this defense, and yes, Kyle Van Noy is a familiar name, but you bring up the point, David Godchow, was it Henry Anderson? They bring back Matt Judon. They brought in Dietrich Wise. They brought back who's a familiar face, but the defense was so bad last year. Yes, they didn't have Hightower. Yes, they didn't have Chung, and they're not going to have Chung anymore because he just retired. But you look at Hightower now coming back. It's like, whoa, this defense has players on it now. And it's like that front four is better. That front seven's better. Your secondary has kind of improved with Jalen Mills, but I mean, JC Jackson's still out there. So, I mean, if the Patriots bring him back, that's going to be a question mark what they do with that second cornerback position. A lot of rumors out there of trading Gilmore or, just letting it ride out with that last year of his contract. So there's still some question marks, but I think the question marks are more in the secondary now than they were for the front seven of the defense because entering free agency, that was a huge problem. But now, a few days into free agency, I'm looking at the secondary now to make some moves.
yeah. So good thing you brought up the secondary. So with the 15th overall pick in this year's draft, there's a couple of defensive options around there. One of them being Patrick Surtain out of Alabama, the safety.
Love them. Love them.
I love him too. And so if they're to keep that pick, I would like to see them use it on Patrick Surtain. His dad played in the league, so football runs in the family. His few years at Alabama, he was productive. He was one of the better safeties in the league or in the conference. I think that it could just carry over. It could carry over into the NFL, and he would be a good guy for a contract or two.
Mm-hmm.
Then he'll maybe want to walk for reasons unknown, or the Patriots will just let him walk. So I think he would be a good draft pick. It would also maybe be good for Stephon Gilmore to like mentor him again. I'm big on mentorship.
It's huge in sports.
Older guys going after the young guys, teaching them the ways of the game.
Yep.
So Gilmore can mentor Surtain.
I just feel like with
I
Patrick
feel-
Surtain. Okay, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, with Surtain, he would just be who'd probably struggle his first year getting used to the NFL, but after that, he'll really flatline and just be not really incredible, but a solid safety for a couple of years. And yeah, I would take him.
I love Patrick Surtain. I mean, obviously, I'm an Alabama guy, and being able to watch him shut down a side of the field or whatever was a spectacular to watch. Especially when I mentioned earlier that there's not a lot of defense in college football, but him, Caleb Farley, all probably the two top guys in the secondary. I just feel like if you're gonna get one of those guys, you might have to trade up for him. Is that the case? Maybe, maybe not. It just going to really depends on how the draft plays out because if a lot of offensive players go, then, those defensive players will drop back, and that's kind of what's expected is to be offensive heavy top 10. Now we've seen mock drafts where, Surtain goes 10, 11, 12, all the way up to, past the Patriots. Exactly where is he going to fall? Who's better, him or Farley? It's a conversation that will last up until the draft. I love the idea of bringing in, someone for the secondary right now because of what the Patriots have done thus far in free agency. Now, if we had this conversation a week ago, I'm not going to agree. I'm not going to say that because it feels like a secondary would be a strong position for the Patriots. But now we're looking at it the way the team is now. It seems like it's not so much a strong position anymore when you have Chung retiring. You have JC Jackson possibly out the door. Stephon Gilmore, even though he's contract, he still might be out the door via trade. It's going to be very interesting to see what the Patriots do with that 15th pick, whether they trade up, trade down, stay where they are. For the most of the offseason thus far, I've said the Patriots should go offense, offense, offense. But now the more I think about it and more, players are being signed and more reports are coming out, I'm leaning towards the defensive side of the ball with that 15th overall pick.
Yeah. I mean, just because of how well you signed offensively or making offensive signings so far, yeah, if you have that 15th overall pick, I would like to see him maybe spend it on defense. The position unknown doesn't matter. But when it comes to next season and which side of the ball should play better, I'd rather be closer to like 60-40, whatever it could be. 60-40, 70-20, 70-30. Just because like I don't want too much focus to be on one side, not the other.
Absolutely.
So definitely like close, maybe not even 70-30. Like definitely 60-40, if not like 55-45.
Yeah, and I mean, you see the Panthers last draft, they take all guys on defense, and it's like, whoa, wait a second, you forgot one side of the ball there. But I mean, they made all their other moves, free agency wise on offense. So there's that kind of a balance there. But when it comes to balance for the Patriots, they're in a completely different class of their own. And the Patriots, when it comes to finding balance, it feels like that it's usually one side of the ball plays better than the other when it comes to their championship runs. I mean, you look at 2019, that was a defensive team. You look at 2017, that was an offensive year. So it's like, where's the strength really going to lie with the Patriots? And obviously Bill Belichick would know that the best. And I think that's going to be the kind of position that he attacks this draft. Obviously, we've seen him attack both sides of the ball free agency, but after free agency, what is he going to do in the draft? Like I've mentioned, I thought it was offense, but now it seems like it's going to be defense.
Yeah, definitely. All right, you can go pee now.
All right, I'm going to pause the Zoom recording. Or do you want me to just keep it running?
You can do whatever.
All right, I'll just pause it.
All right, so, I mean, other than that, I think that's all that we got right now. So, if you got anything else you want to like talk about or mention quickly, I guess.
Right off the rip, I can't think of anything. I think we covered a lot of stuff. I mean, we covered, bold predictions. We covered hot takes, obviously simple reports from all four teams. It's an interesting, exciting, frustrating, nerve-wracking time to be a Boston sports fan, or even simply just, be in the media talking about Boston sports fans, because there's so much news that's revolving around all four teams. And at the end of the day, something could break and something could, completely change, our stance on a certain topic. So
something actually did just break.
Oh, goodness. Now what?
Adam Schefter, defensive end Montravius Adams, to sign with the Patriots on a 1-year deal, $2.5 million.
Okay. I got to look it up.
And Will Fuller to the Dolphins.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense for them. They need to start surrounding Tua with weapons. And could that be a prelude to a Deshaun Watson trade to Miami? I don't know. I mean, they played obviously together in Houston. That'll be interesting.
That can make sense. That can make a lot of sense.
So it's a kind of a win-win for the Dolphins. You either surround Tua with, a talented receiver, or you try to lure Deshaun Watson to Miami, which I don't think he wouldn't mind going to. It's just luring the Texans to trade him.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking up Montravius Adams right now. So he's been playing since 2017. He's 20. I think he's 26 years old.
He'll be 26 for next season.
He played 8 games last year. Nothing impressive.
Nothing fancy. 11 combination 11 tackles, 6 solo. Ugh. 2 tackles for a loss. I guess you'll take that.
Yeah. So yeah, no wonder it was like a short, small deal, right? 1 year, $2.5 million, I think it was. Yeah.
But he's young. He's coming from a good defense. Obviously, Packers had a great defense this past year. Just another good body on that line. Like I said, he's young, so that 1 year could turn into a little extension.
I think work is magic.
Exactly. John Simon, Adam Butler, Lawrence Guy, they're all out. They're all out and replaced, and it's good to see because that line sucked last year, and replacing it was a must.
Yeah, 6'4", 304 defensive tackle. So it sounds like he's a big guy, which is probably a good thing for the Patriots because they looked a little small on the line, and this will be a big improvement.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah. All right.
Absolutely.
So actually, one more thing, I guess, before we wrap up.
Absolutely. What's up?
In your 2 months of hot podcasting, what would you say is your hottest hot take?
Oh goodness. My hottest hot take might
Over the
be.
Yeah, for like the past couple of days, like I've been big into like hot takes. I had the Deshaun Watson hot take, the Gardner Minshew hot take. I forget they're the third one. I've been big into like hot takes over these
Yeah,
past few days.
absolutely.
So
I know a hot take of mine. I had Georgia Tech in the Sweet 16. I think that's pretty hot. I also think. Oh, good. You got me on the spot now here. Jeez.
well, to wrap up the show,
I know. I got Georgia
if,
Tech in the Sweet 16.
if you want to think about it, I'll go. I'll just put mine out there right now.
Go ahead.
So while you think about it, it's not so much of a hot take because I think a lot of Boston fans feel this way, but Red Sox upper management, John Henry's, Tom Warner,
Yep.
I hate all of them and I want them gone.
Out of here.
I want them traded.
LeBron James takeover.
Exactly.
He's part owner of the Sox now, so
that was a shock. I don't know how to feel about that, but yeah, Tom Warner, John Henry, I hate all of them. They're not impressive at all.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what they're doing. I feel like most of the time they feel like if we win a championship one year, we can suck for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Then we'll win another championship and then suck again, just so we can keep making more money and save money in every way possible. So yeah, I think that would be my hottest take of all time right now.
I think I have one for baseball going into 2021, and I say this with a little prelude because I said that the Tampa Bay Rays were going to win the AL East last year. Obviously, the Yankees had a better lineup, they had a better team, and that take ended up coming to fruition where the Rays ended up getting to the World Series. Yeah. I don't think that it's going to be the Rays this year, and I know we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier with the Sox. I'm going to sit here and tell you right now.
I like where this is going.
Your American League East division winner, the Toronto Blue Jays.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Red Sox.
No. I mean, it could be, but I think the Blue Jays is a little bit more of a hotter prediction. I mean, you can argue that the Red Sox could win. You could argue the Blue Jays could too, but
we can also agree that the Yankees fall apart towards the end of the season, like they have for the past few years.
It's clockwork for them.
They can struggle. They can struggle at the worst times and benefit other teams to catch up to them.
The Rays, it was a hot take last year, the beginning of the last year, and I was on it all season long. Obviously, when COVID was, happened, the season was canceled and the season came back. But for the full 162, your American League East division winner will be the Toronto Blue Jays, not the New York Yankees. So same thing as last year, but just with a different team.
Yeah. I mean, it can make a little sense. I think I like that. I think I like that hot take, and I might steal it.
You absolutely should. I mean, I'm 1 for 1 so far. I had the Rays last year, and I'll have the Blue Jays this year.
Keep that record perfect. All right. Well, this was a lot of fun, James. A lot of fun. A lot of talking points. Red Sox. We hit all the sports.
Sox, Bruins, Celtics, Patriots, the draft even.
Yeah.
Nuts.
And we talked about other teams. Other players. Talked a little college basketball. Michigan State going to the Sweet 16. You heard it here first. And you know what? Actually, it's not so much of a hot take that I've had on the show, but last tournament, Michigan State would have absolutely won the tournament. They were so good. Mm-hmm. They had all the pieces put together. People don't believe me when I say that because it didn't happen, but they absolutely would have won the national championship last year.
I was so pissed that the tournament was canceled last year. I mean, there was a lot of good teams that had a lot of good chances last year as well, and it just really sucks.
Yeah, but I was sitting here recording an episode when I saw the tweet pop up that the March Madness has been canceled. I was not happy, but that's over a year ago. I can't believe it's been a year since that happened. It really this year really flew by.
It's been 2 years since the last tournament. It's like whoa,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
So looking forward to it.
It was cool to watch Selection Sunday again.
Mm-hmm.
Having not watched it in 2 years. Yeah, but yeah, this whole Corona thing, like it was cool to have that. It wasn't cool. I don't know why I just said that.
Whoa.
This whole I know I'd probably gonna get edited.
Jeez.
But this whole Corona thing, it's really flown by. Like this whole the year in between the first breakout to now, like we got vaccines going. It's been fast. It really has flown by fast. Not for probably most people, but for me it has. Definitely.
Your head's down and you're grinding away the podcast, the radio. I mean, you're doing what you can do in the meantime. So I don't blame you. It's flying by for me too. I mean, it feels like it was just summer, but now we have summer approaching us. So hopefully, this summer be a lot different than last summer. And
definitely
we can be talking about the Patriots draft. We can be talking about the Bruins and the Celtics, hopefully doing well in their respective playoffs, and the Red Sox are playing well.
Yeah, hopefully. Look forward to that time. But yeah, I mean, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you to all you guys listening. James, it was a pleasure. We got to do this again.
Absolutely. Dude. We will have to be doing this again very soon. See if we can defend our takes or if we have to back them up further, claim and admit that we were wrong with something. This was something that's been in the works, and it's just something that has been super fun to be doing. And hopefully we can do it again very, very soon.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's going to do it for today. Thank you all you guys, both sides. Guiney Sports Pod, Murphy's Boston Sports Talk.
Thank you so
much. All you guys
much.
Listening, we appreciate it. And we'll be back again in a couple months to do it again, James.
See you later, Shawn. It was a pleasure,
talk
man.
to you, brother. All right, later.
That recording probably took us, I believe it was 3.5 hours, and it was all sports, all fun. Debating, conversing, I wouldn't say we argued, but, we went back and forth, which is good. That's what sports is all about, talking about sports, what my podcast wants to do. And I think his as well is to generate discussions revolving around Boston sports. And it was super fun, as you know. Shawn and I are definitely going to collab again later in the future, sooner than later, I should say. But with all that, I don't want to keep this podcast episode any longer than it has to be. I really hope you all enjoyed. Definitely don't forget to download. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe if you're new to the channel, or leave a like rating down below as well. Audio only platforms. Reach out to me on Twitter and Instagram at Murphs_BostonST. You know the drill. I will see you on Hump Days on Wednesdays edition of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. But until then, see ya.